glad you're with us. This is the Retirement Education Hour. Megan Mozak here in the studio with Kirk Cassidy and Dr. Paul Metler. Kirk and Paul, they're both financial instructors, and they're with the Retirement Education Foundation. This program is brought to you by the foundation, and the mission there is to help you get educated on all things retirement planning. Retirement does not happen by accident. It's not something you can just wish and hope for. It's intentional. You must be intentional with your planning, and it does start with a solid education. That's what we do here on the show. I want to remind you that you're welcome to go back into our library of programming. You can listen to any topic that we've discussed in the past. Download it wherever you find your favorite podcast. Search for the name of the show, Retirement Education Hour. And we'll be telling you throughout the program how you can get registered for the Foundation's courses on retirement planning. These are either in-person or virtual courses. They're like master's level courses. And boy, do we want to see you there. I do want to dive into this topic with you today, and it's a good one. And I want to talk about unplanned retirement, unexpected retirement. And I think, Kirk and Paul, there's this idea out there that we get to choose our retirement date. But you say that's not always the case.
It isn't the case. And we believe, actually, there's quite a bit of urgency right now to this specific topic. We actually moved this topic ahead of a number of others, given, there's a lot of people, tens of thousands of people that are experiencing this right now in the federal government, where, statistically speaking, the data, this is something we've known for a long time. And unfortunately, people, especially baby boomers, are starting to experience it right now, that only 40% of people get to choose when they retire. And I know what our listeners are thinking right now, because we know who listens to our shows. We know the people that are listening to our shows and watching our podcasts usually have somewhere between $700,000 and $20 million of investable assets. And they tend to have over 4 years of post-high school education. So that specific demo, Paul, they think they get to choose when they get to retire. And the truth is, often they don't. Literally, only 40% of people get to choose. And we're experiencing it now with the federal government, where they're giving people an opportunity to take a buyout. They are going to force cut. No matter how much they fight this, there's going to be cuts coming. We've seen this in the automotive industry. We're going to see more of this This is going to continue to happen, especially for people over the age of 55. And whether it is a mandatory buyout or mandatory cut or a offer, what we know, Paul, is people are, when they're hit with this, they're unprepared because they think they're going to get to choose to do it, and they're not good. And their advisors are telling them, hey, just wait until you retire and we'll build you a plan. That doesn't work, does it?
It doesn't. And part of this, I think, is human nature, in that I think we all tend to think we're invincible, right? So
avoidance.
Avoidance. So part of it is we can get laid off. But the other part of this is, sometimes because of unplanned health events. We have different fathers, same mother, right?
Yep.
My father, not your father, my father was forced to retire. And I don't know if you even know this. He made a mistake in his job, and they found it. And the mistake was because of a cognitive issue that at the time he didn't know. It turned out he was diagnosed with dementia.
Right.
And he ended up being forced to retire. Didn't plan it.
Yeah. No, so if those of you who don't know, Paul is my brother, different father, same mother. He's also happens to be a psychologist, a PsyD with an MBA from the University of Michigan. He's a pretty smart guy, and he fellowship trained in geriatric psychology. This is his specialty. So I think you might have hit on something, this avoidance. Now, what we're going to talk about today, Paul, is things that you should be doing proactively to anticipate something that might happen, or even an opportunity that you're confronted with that you think you're ready for. And I'm going to tell you, we know this. We have taught tens of thousands of people. We know you're not ready, and you will panic last minute, and it'll cause all kinds of errors and mistakes that you can avoid. And the other good part of this, Paul, is a lot of the listeners here right now already have what they need to give them what they want, and they don't know it. And that's sort of what the class also teaches. And this is why the charity hosts these 8-hour, almost master-level classes that are held at most of the major universities in your area. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org.
I'm glad you brought up the word avoidance. Right, I'm really glad you did because that really is probably at the core of the problem here.
Especially for men, right? Especially for men.
That's right. Because listen, retirement is. We had a show recently on this, right? The psychology of retirement. Yeah. Retirement is a hard thing for people to face for a whole bunch of reasons, and we keep pushing it off because we don't want to face it. And how many people have you met in our classes who are still working that ended up didn't need to work? And it's because they were afraid to. They were afraid to face all the things that come with retirement.
Can I say, honestly, I see the majority of the people coming to our classes. Now, I want to be careful. When I say the majority, just to be clear, I'm not saying like 9 out of 10. But the majority, 6 out of 10 people, maybe more, that attend this almost master's level 8-hour courses we just did one full Saturday, and then we're just finishing one up 2 evenings. They're between the ages of often 55 and 65, and they've already won the marathon. They already have what they need to give them what they want, and they had no clue. They have no clue. And even when they think they know, there's external excuses. I got to wait until 65 because, magical Medicare starts like it's free or something. Or I got to hit this $2 million target. Why? I don't know. That was my goal. Well, great, but do you need that? A lot of people don't need that. $2 million, just to put in perspective, everyone, for a 65-year-old married couple, can generate $160,000 of cash flow. 160. That's an 8% withdrawal rate if you know how. If you have a comprehensive, individualized plans that manages sequence of returns risks with dynamic income strategies, which, again, that's what the 8-hour class teaches. Paul, 40%, and I'm going to wrap the segment. I'm sorry, Paul, but 40% of the people is what percentage of people get to retire? And so, unfortunately, so many people are getting confronted with that. And I'm telling you, I know it's chaos because we are getting emails and calls into our charity, our classes. It's not an accident. Did you notice our last 3 classes, there was waiting lists? We had to close down 2 weeks in advance. We had 50 plus people and then 50 people online. People are recognizing that they're more vulnerable and they're unprepared. They're not unprepared financially. They don't know that, but they're psychologically unprepared because they don't know they have what they need to give them what they want. So attend one of our 8-hour classes. Also listen to this show. We're going to talk more about this. But when you attend these 8-hour classes, you get a 200-page textbook, and all you have to do for this 8-hour class and taught in most of the universities and colleges and streamed, by the way, wherever you're at in the country, you can stream live while we're teaching the classes. All we ask is for a $29 donation to charity. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. Thanks for listening to the Retirement Education Hour. Be sure to follow or subscribe when listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And now, back to the show.
I wanted to bring up an article that I came across, and it's by Susie Orman. And of course, a lot of people know her, kind of a financial guru. And she said, listen, you've got to make plans, ladies and gentlemen, to work at least till age 70. No one should be retiring before then. In fact, work as long as you can. And she also mentioned if you don't have $2 million saved for retirement, basically you can forget it. This had me concerned. Thought I'd put it in front of the two of you. How should we be thinking about that?
Megan, I thank you for asking that question because I saw that quote. I saw that article. She's actually said it a number of times in a number of different articles. And it is so irritating for us from the charity's perspective, who teaches people how to retire. And our goal is, Paul, people have worked. They've worked over 90,000 hours in their lifetime. And on average, the average person works over 43. It's almost 45 years. 45 years, 90,000 hours. And she's telling you, first of all, the quote is $2 million is like pennies, which, who the hell are you? I'm sorry. That is rude. That is, honestly, for a lot of people to save that kind of money, they've worked, saved, and sacrificed. It's not like pennies. It's a lie. And here's where this stems from, and we see this happen all the time, Paul. It stems from the fact that the financial service industry, sincerely, they have no incentive to help you spend more money or retire sooner. In fact, the longer you work and the less you spend, the more money they make because they get to manage more of your money longer, right? So they're conflicted right off the bat. In addition, so that's just one step is they make more money. Not only do they make more money, if you work longer and you follow these silly, stupid 3 or 4% rules that literally everyone lives and dies by, it's crazy. They don't have to do any real comprehensive planning. And folks, planning isn't what you invest in. Planning is where you take your income from when we have inevitable market events. They're going to happen. And so, Paul, what I see a lot, and I see it, we see it every class, someone comes up to us, at least someone's often multiple people. This past weekend, multiple people came up and said, hey, I took an offer, they made me an offer, and I rescinded it 24 or 48 hours before the deadline because I panicked. And this is why you all need to get to a class now, and you plan 5 to 10 years before retirement. Not your advisor say, when you retire, we'll build you a plan. No, because I'm telling you, as you get closer to that deadline of either losing your job or having the opportunity to leave, you're going to shut down and panic because your relationship with money, the anxiety, the fear, and the general rules of thumb people are giving you is making you feel like you don't have enough and you panic and you're going to outlive your money.
Yeah, I think it's playing on people's vulnerabilities and anxieties and fears, right? I don't think it's a surprise. I mean, as you said, there's a bit of a conflict here, conflict of interest for the advisory firms out there, right? Because they already know you're afraid. They already know you're anxious, and they could play on that, and they benefit. That's your point, correct? They benefit because if you don't retire and you keep working, you don't spend your money. And if you don't spend your money, these advisors continue making money. It sounds conspiratory, doesn't it, a little bit? But use common sense, right? If you listen to the radio, you pick up the newspaper, constant messages about you don't have enough, don't retire. How often do we meet people, Kirk, that had enough years ago and don't retire, and then what happens? Bad things happen. They don't get to enjoy their retirement. Sometimes you pass away, right? It's a shame.
I'm thinking about all those federal employees that are going to get cut because it's happening. That are going to, first of all, they're literally losing their minds. I mean, they're probably frustrated. I know. I'm sure they're frustrated and feel like it's unfair. Setting the fairness factor aside, there's a lot of fear and anxiety for a lot of those older federal workers, and many of them have it, and they're going to end up going back to work and taking lesser jobs, talking about hurting your ego. Look, the class, the purpose of this class in the charity, our charity, is really to help people unlock the freedom by giving them the knowledge and the resources to find the right people to help them so that they can spend more, retire sooner, have less anxiety, pay less taxes. That's all this is about unlocking the freedom. Because the money is now here to serve you, folks. It's there to serve you. And you've spent 45 years serving money. This is really a difficult transition. It scares people. And the closer they get to that D-Day, especially even when they're getting really great offers to buy out and they really should just go retire, they're panicking. I know I've got listeners right now. We've got listeners right now that have done this. They've panicked last minute because they didn't have a plan. They didn't understand all the different things you can do to mitigate different risks. In the class, we'll teach you how to mitigate the risk of outliving your money, teaching you how to take 6, 7, 8, 9% withdrawal rates. That's not growth rates, withdrawals to live on. I'm telling you, that's not a lie. It's hard. How do we mitigate the risks of long-term care? There are things you can do to plan for that. Mitigate the risk of one spouse dying early. These are all things that we're covering in the class. That's why it's 8 hours. That's why it's like a master's level class. I promise you've never seen anything like this. All we ask is a $29 donation to charity. Please register for one of our classes at retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. Listening from outside Michigan or Missouri? We stream courses live from the university so you can attend anywhere in the country. go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org to sign up. And now back to the show.
Now, Kirk and Paul, I do want to get back to this topic about unexpected retirements. And I want to talk about some of the risks that people should be aware of, whether they're forced to retire or whether they're presented with some type of a buyout option.
Yeah, Megan, I think obviously you have to define the risks. And there's a number of things that people don't really recognize that they should be focusing on specifically when it comes to retirement. I know. We've taught tens of thousands of people, Paul. We've been running this charity for years. And then we have a private practice that we're responsible for $2 billion of only people who are in retirement. So we are national experts when it comes to this. And we know that most people believe the number one risk to their retirement is outliving their money, and that the market is what's going to cause them to either succeed or fail. In other words, what they invest in is going to drive whether they succeed or they fail. And that is not really true, Paul. What drives success, and we're going to talk about it, is really managing something called sequence of returns risk. We call it dynamic income planning. We're going to explain what this is probably in our next segment. But that's the number one risk that we need to define, is how are we going to take our income, especially during these unexpected major market events that are going to occur. And I'm not going to just isolate it, Paul, to unexpected major market events. I will also throw in the category of a political figure they may not like. An election they don't like, a geopolitical, something that makes them feel anxious or uncomfortable. What's the goal of our charity? What should retirement be about? Unlocking the freedom to spend and enjoy the retirement, to let money serve them. And if you are changing your spending patterns every time we have a short-term market event, that's not freedom. I can promise you this: over a 30-year retirement, we're going to have 3 to 6 major market events, maybe a couple left tail events, 3 standard deviation events, potentially, right? These are major. And so every time we have an event, you can't change your spending patterns. We have to unlock that freedom. So the number one risk that we need to manage and help define is, how can we avoid outliving our money and maximizing our income? I'm going to give a couple more, and then I'm going to pass it to you, Paul. I want to make sure, if we're married, defining the risk of what happens to a surviving spouse. Paul, I'm telling you, everyone's doing this wrong. Our industry isn't telling you about this, but this whole cost-benefit analysis on your pension versus lump sum, and the cost-benefit analysis when you elect your pension, 50, 65, 75%, 100% survivor benefits, you guys are doing the wrong math. You're making a mistake. You better protect your surviving spouse, because they're going to lose the lesser of the 2 Social Securities, and their tax bracket, for most of the people listening, most of you guys, $700,000 to $10 million, your spouse will jump up 2 tax brackets. Taxes are going to go up, way up, when the first spouse dies. You go from married, filing joint to single, and then Medicare jumps up 4 or 5 brackets because you go from married to single. That's a whole nother risk that needs to be defined and structured, Paul.
Yeah, no, you did a great job, really sort of giving an overview of the risk. The one risk that people don't think about is the psychological risk that occurs, right? If you don't
leave it to the psychologist,
it just is, right? Because you sort of alluded to it when you said, changing your spending habits is not freedom. At the end of the day, there's a way to mitigate these risks. We're going to talk about it at the end of the show. It's called doing a true plan, which is what we teach in the class. But at the end of the day, it's not just financial is the risk. Psychologically, right? If you don't know that you have answers to, if you've not mitigated these risks when you retire, you are never going to enjoy your retirement. And if you don't enjoy your retirement, why did you work all those years? How many hours did you say? Why did you work 40 years or 9? I don't know how many hours you said.
90,000.
90,000 hours. If you retire and you spend every day worrying because taxes may go up, I may have a health problem, stock market may crash, my spouse may die. We can go on and on and on. That's not freedom either.
Paul, what's incredibly difficult for us is that the people that are living this right now, that are retired, that have these anxieties, they know exactly what we're talking about. But those people who haven't quite retired yet,
don't get it.
Within 5 to 10 years, they've had the greatest 10-year bull run in market history, right? At the time that their 401ks and retirement accounts are hitting full compound interest, they are so overconfident, and they don't think any of this. They were disciplined during the financial crisis. They were disciplined during COVID. They didn't panic. They're fine. They don't understand. Look, old people aren't cheap. When people get older, it's not they don't stop spending because they're cheap. They stop spending because of anxiety and fear. Older people get afraid as they age, as things start to cognitively change. Once someone no longer is sending you a paycheck every month. So you better be able to recreate that paycheck every single month, whether the market is up or down. You better have pivot accounts, which we'll talk about at the end of the class, non-correlated accounts. When the market's down, you can take your income from. Your spending patterns better not change when you're retired, because when you were working, your spending patterns didn't change. And you think you're going to be fine because you're a tough guy. A lot of times it's the men. I'm telling you, ask retirees how they feel. Just read the studies and the research. Attend one of our 8-hour classes. All we ask is you make a $29 donation to charity. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org.
Classes are forming now. Go to retirementplanningedu.org to register. Again, that's retirementplanningedu.org. Use the promo code PODCAST to receive 50% off your tuition. And now, back to the show.
We've been talking about some of the risks associated with our topic today. You know, one of the risks I hear you talk about often, and I want you to tell me how it relates to this topic, is something called sequence of return risk. What do we need to know?
So, Megan, here's the deal. All right. And it goes right in line with this is the number one risk to everyone's retirement. But specifically, as we're talking about federal workers being forced or being offered to be bought out, as we talk about the next major market event that we have, many of the people listening today, those 55-year-old plus people in automotive industry, if we have a recession, you're going to get the opportunity to retire and or be forced to retire. These things are coming, and we know only 40% of you get to control when, okay? So here's the deal. The reason you have to plan now, right now, and the reason why you have to come to the class right now, the charity's 8-hour almost master level class, is something called sequence of returns risk managing and having accounts established so that when we have those major market events, if you are retired, and or anytime we have a major market event and then you lose your job, that you have pivot accounts, you have different accounts established, already prepared for that day when it happens that you can pull your income from. Now, I'm assuming most of you don't understand what I'm saying. We have talked about sequence of returns risk for a decade on these radio shows in our classes. This isn't something new. I will say we are getting better at communicating it. I can tell you on the charity's website right now, you can download a white paper on sequence of returns risk. You can download an interactive calculator showing you examples of sequence of returns risk. And then after you do those things, you have to go watch the webinar on the charity's website of what a sample retirement plan looks like, so you can connect these pieces together. To manage this number one risk to your retirement, you have to have, and we call it dynamic income planning, okay? And it's almost like, and I know everyone talks about buckets, but it's almost like buckets within buckets. If you could imagine a red zone, a yellow zone, and a green zone. The red zone money is dollars we're going to spend in the first 4 years of retirement. The yellow zone is the money we're going to spend 5 years through 9 years. And then the green zone is 10 years plus. Now, those buckets are going to, the 10 plus years, straight S&P 500. The middle years, 60-40, 70-30 S&P 500 in bonds. And then the first 4 years, that red zone, it can be a couple of different things depending on your plans, but that cannot be exposed to market risk. And you know, bonds isn't always the answer. You learned that in 2022. Now, you are only going to pull money from the red zones in retirement. And if we have and when you're pulling money out of your red zones to live on, if the market is up, you rebalance your portfolios. You take money out of the green, put it in the yellow, and you take money out of the yellow and you put it into the red. If the market is down, you do not rebalance. You do not sell anything. I don't care what anyone in the financial service industry tells you. Don't sell a thing. You don't need to sell anything because you have a red zone to take your income from that isn't exposed to market risk. Now, ready? The problem is we don't know how long your portfolios will be down. We lost a decade in the early 2000s, right? So we need a sustained period of time before we have to sell any of our portfolios are down. And to do that, you have to have pivot accounts, okay? I cannot explain in the class. In the radio show, this is as detailed as we've ever gotten here, I think. In the class, we break this down. You can see this on our sample plan if you watch our webinars. But you begin to understand why it's 8 hours of education, almost master's level, and understand, I'm not even talking taxes yet, because minimizing taxes extends the life of your money also. It also minimizes something called sequence of returns risk. But where you take your income from when the market is down is critical. Where you take your income from when the market's up is critical. Most importantly, we never sell anything. None of our investments if the portfolio's down and we wait for it to recover. So we better have pivot accounts to take our money from because you're not reducing your spending. You're not protecting your principal. You don't have to. This is one of the biggest risk mitigating tools there is. And a handful of people in the country are doing this. There's not many people doing what I'm teaching you right now. And that is why, what I just described, Paul, is why people can spend 6, 7, 8, 9% withdrawal rates with zero chance of outliving their income if they can manage those sequence of return events. How are we doing, Paul?
We have about a minute here. Okay. So if I could I'm just going to throw one thing in here. I want to make sure people are listening, okay? Obviously, the sooner you do this, the better. Right? But that doesn't mean if you're listening and you're going to lose your job tomorrow that it's too late. It's never too late, but it's like landing an airplane. The longer the runway, the smoother the landing. But if tomorrow you lose your job, it's not too late to set this up. It's just better to do it sooner than later, because the sooner you do it, the more effective your strategy is going to be.
Yeah, Paul, I think and I took a lot of that segment, but what I think you're hearing, I hope, is so if you're retired, you're retired. You got to go to the class and you got to understand what we're talking about so that you can unlock the freedom in retirement, right? But those people who aren't retired or aren't planning to retire, you just don't know when you're going to be forced to or something happens. And that's why you got to plan now so that you have these pivot accounts in place. Listen, it's an 8-hour almost master's level class taught at major universities all over the place, wherever in your local areas. And we're streaming them live, so wherever you're at in the country, you can watch. All we ask is a $29 donation to charity. Register at retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. To find our latest white papers and webinars, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. And remember to subscribe or follow wherever you listen to your podcasts. And now back to the show.
And today we're focused, of course, on those unplanned, unexpected retirements that can pop up. And boy, no one wants that. You don't want to be caught flat-footed. It's really important to get the right support through this whole experience. How do we find the right team?
Megan, I'm glad you asked that because as unfortunately some of our federal employees are learning right now, they're going to be forced out, right? And we're not, again, only 40% of you get to choose when to retire. So a lot of you are probably scrambling looking for teams right now. Who should I hire to help me? Because I need help, right? So I know a lot of people listening to our show often are do-it-yourselfers. They're engineers, they're CPAs, they're attorneys, they're execs, doctors. Hello, doctors. We know this, okay? And so this is tricky, right? So one of the biggest pieces of our class, one of our core areas of concentration right towards the end of the 8-hour class is how do you choose a team, right? How do you do a background check? what specific questions you should ask. You will have an idea based upon the plan. You'll understand if someone is doing sequence of returns planning, if they're really doing tax planning, are they really mapping this out, red, yellow, buckets within buckets? You're going to understand functionally what a plan should look like, and you'll also now know how to challenge them. When I'm forced to take required minimum distributions, and if the market's down, what account do I take my money from? You're going to have the right questions to ask. We're going to teach you how they get paid, what different disclosures mean, because people like to, there's a lot of people on the radio right now, guys. This is the area that scares me. Before you choose anybody, please, I beg you to attend one of our 8-hour classes, either live in person, 2 evenings, 4 hours each evening during the week, or a full Saturday class, or stream the class live during those times wherever you're at in the country. Before you choose a team, I beg you, from a charity, from a person that has been teaching tens of thousands of people about retirement planning. We are national experts when it comes to this. I beg you guys to come to a class, because I too listen to other financial service companies that, not like us, we're a charity, but other financial service companies that are doing radio shows and doing TV shows in the local markets. We watch them all. And remarkably, you'll find how similar they sound to us now. They've changed their tune to make themselves sound like us. And you know what other thing we track is the people who are downloading our white papers and going to the charity's website to look at the webinars. Is the number one white paper downloaded is sequence of returns risk. The number one webinar is a view of a sample plan. Over 50% of the people that are downloading it are actually people in the financial service industry to steal the content so they can promote and market. The next 10 callers get a free roadmap to retirement, or get your free tax roadmap to retirement. This is computer-generated analysis that any of you could get on the internet. That isn't a plan. And by the way, literally every single person on the radio locally right now, I know every one of them, and on TV, I know every group. Look them up. Go look at their disclosures. See if they have complaints against them. Go look how much money they manage. We teach you how to do this. These people are insurance salespeople. They sell annuities. Over 80% of I'm not going to say the groups, but I know all the groups. I know them. We track it so that we can help protect you. It is insurance salesmen. They sell insurance. We can prove it to you. Go online. We'll teach you to go online, look at their disclosures. You'll see how much money they manage. One of them manages less than $100 million, and they sell $150 million of annuities per year. They've been in business 30 years, and all they do is sell insurance. The other one has 18 offices now. They just opened 6 offices this year in Michigan. I don't know how many advisors they have, and they manage like $250 million in the stock market, and they sell $250 million of annuities per year. You got to come to the class so that you don't get fooled. You don't get tricked. You know, like the person on TV, I'd rather die and go to hell than own an annuity. We're a fiduciary. Is your advisor a fiduciary? That guy is a marketing genius. It's a sales pitch. You got to come to the class. Paul, I stole the whole segment. I did it again. Give me a couple of minutes.
I'll give you 30 seconds. Let me just say this.
Sorry.
It's okay. You use
this is a hot button for me.
You use the term team. And I want to make sure it's really important. People use teams all the time. You want to make sure your CPA, right, is coordinating with your advisor if you're doing tax planning. You want to make sure that your lawyer is coordinating with the advisor to make sure that your trusts are getting funded correctly. A team is not just a loosely. I hear people say that all the time. Well, I have a team. I have a CPA. I have an attorney. That's not a team.
Right, Paul. A team they're coordinated. They're all in one. Will help you, and that's what the class does. We're going to give you the tools to go out and search for the right teams. We're going to give you the tools to go find them. We're a charity. We are there to serve you, to help you find the right teams to help you. So do yourself a favor. Even if you aren't one that's being told you need to leave or getting an offer, it may come. Many of you already have what you need to give you what you want to retire. You just don't know it. Attend one of our 8-hour classes. They're taught at most of the major universities in your area. They are taught either 2 evenings, 4 hours per 6 to 10, or a full Saturday. And it's a long class, 200-page textbook. And all we ask is you make a $29 donation to charity to attend, and it will change your retirement. I can promise you that. If you'd like to register, go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org. Thanks for listening to the Retirement Education Hour. Be sure to follow or subscribe when listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And now, back to the show.
Kirk and Paul, it's a big risk, right? And we know it's going to hit some of our listeners today, this unexpected retirement situation. You both say, though, that planning is actually the antidote here, right?
It is the antidote. I mean, I don't want to sound too arrogant, but we've witnessed for over a decade and 10,000 people, we have witnessed that the charity, the class, and the information the charity provides the community is the medicine people need to be able to make a good decision, to be able to retire and spend more, the antidote to being able to spend more money, retire earlier if they want, pay less taxes, and unlock that freedom during the most vulnerable stages of your life when you have a lot of anxiety and fear. That's the medicine to help manage the anxiety and the fear. And I know it sounds a bit arrogant, but the class, it changes people's lives. And we make a guarantee to that, by the way. Just as a reminder, anyone who attends the class, if they don't leave the class feeling significantly better prepared for retirement, that they don't feel like it's changed their retirement, we make a $1,000 donation to whatever charity you want, or $2,000. I can't remember what we do. It's $2,000, and we've done it once, and over 10,000 people now we've had to do it once. So that's how confident we are. And so the reason why it's the antidote is, besides the incredible amount of very high level, almost master's level information, we walk you through what a real retirement plan should look like to be able to mitigate all the different risks associated with someone's retirement. We cover them all: long-term care, a spouse dying early, a long-term event early, late, recessions, lost decades, wanting to leave a legacy, a spouse and a husband and wife not agreeing on spending patterns. We cover it all in the class by showing you what a real comprehensive plan that should someone needs to build for you individually, mapping out 30 years of retirement, mapping out the income from 30 years, mapping out all the different buckets within each registration, the different accounts that should be set up depending on when you're scheduled to spend those dollars, when you should rebalance your portfolios or not rebalance your portfolios, teaching you about bucket accounts that you can transfer to grab your income from, just in case we have a sustained long period of time of the market being down and your accounts not recovering. We teach you on how to protect yourself and mitigate the risk of long-term care. The tax one is huge. I'm telling you, we show in the class, you'll see at the class, just by changing the order in which you take your money from, out of your IRAs, your 401ks, your taxable accounts, your tax deferred, your Roth accounts, the non-deductibles, all your pensions, your Social Securities. By changing the order of when you take those income to minimize taxes, you can extend the life of your money. 5, 10, in our class we show 13 years, your money lasts longer, allowing you to retire earlier. This is unlocking the freedom to spend more than that silly 3 or 4% rate, Paul. And I'll give it to you in 2 seconds. Remember, it's also, how do you coordinate the CPA and attorney so they're working together on the same plan to create a team, closed loop, so that when you get old, no one takes advantage of you, because 1 in 4 of you will be victims of financial elder abuse, and 60% of that elder abuse will be your families. That's AARP's numbers, not mine. $28 billion was lost to financial elder abuse for people over the age of 70. Paul, I mean, this is a game changer, this class.
It is, and we talk a lot about anxiety and fear that comes with retirement, right? But at the end of the day, what causes anxiety and fear? It's the unknown. It's lack of control, right? What's the solution to anxiety, to the unknown? Is planning. And folks, not all plans are created equal. I promise you, some of you are listening and with one ear thinking, I don't have to worry about this. I have a plan. Someone gave me a plan. It's a beautiful plan. It has all these different colors and chapters, and it's 1,000 pages. Folks, if you come to the class, I promise you, you will see the difference between a true retirement plan and a cookie-cutter, computer-generated plan that looks really beautiful but really does nothing, right? A plan that outlines risk mitigation strategies over the next 30 years, whether that's taxes or health or long-term care or a spouse dying, a plan that really risk mitigates will reduce your anxiety, you'll feel in control, and you're going to enjoy your retirement.
It unlocks the freedom to spend.
It does. It really does. It really does.
Paul, I love the dial of success is that
useless.
William Bangen invented the 4% rule in that dial in 1994, but yet that is still what the industry is using, the silly 4% rule. All of your online calculators, your 401k calculators, your Morningstar, your Vanguards, your Schwabs, they all use the same thing. The eMoney Money Guide Pro, any of you guys heard of that? Or Right Capital, all the same thing. 20 pages, 30 pages of probability of success, different graphs. That's not a plan. Just go to the Cherry's website. You'll see a plan. Then you should be convinced to go to the class. Go watch a 30-minute webinar on the Cherry's website. It'll show you what a sample plan looks like and gives you an idea of what we're going to teach you. If you'd like to register for one of these courses, all we ask is for a $29 donation to charity. Go to retirementplanningedu.org. That's retirementplanningedu.org.
Retirement Education Foundation is a fiscally sponsored program of United Charitable, a registered 501c3 public charity. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any insurance discussed in this show is backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. Retirement Education Foundation is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Retirement Education Foundation. This radio show is paid for by the Retirement Education Foundation.